Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Bird, founder of Acquisition IQ Network, as well as the Acquisition Podcast, as well as ACQUICON, a conference all around M&A transactions, learning how to buy companies, sell companies, fund companies, and scale companies. Today, I'm joined with Pete Larsen. He is a legal service provider, and he's been on the M&A side of multiple transactions, both with the strategic acquisition of real estate in a way that we'll talk about a little bit later in the podcast, as well as helping business owners through the process of acquisition, and then also everything from the legal side of that. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Acquisition IQ podcast. Now today is really about education, and then also creating some use cases that'll be really relevant to those that are watching. So again, thanks for coming.
You bet. Glad to be here.
So what got you started in the legal field, and what's enjoyable about the job?
Yeah, so different path than most attorneys. I was a business owner before I went to law school and failed a couple businesses
Mm-hmm.
and got frustrated with the process and felt like I needed to understand more about the legal side of it. And so at the age of 32, I told my wife I'm going to law school. And with 4 kids in tow, we went to law school. And I wouldn't suggest that path to anyone. It was hard, but very rewarding on the other end. So I kind of came into the practice of law with a different perspective. And that perspective was
More through business ownership,
more entrepreneurship, and that kind of thing. And so I think my clients really appreciate that because they have an attorney that is more of a deal maker, understands that businesses have to take risks to make money, and just looking out for them in that sense, like how to mitigate those risks, how to take them wisely, and what the risks actually mean, as opposed to just don't take the risk. We're redlining that out or whatever.
Yeah, let's talk a bit more about that. As a lawyer, you have to be a risk mitigator, and you're constantly having to be very analytical as to what contractual agreements are created. So share with us your experience within maybe a contract or two of how you're able to, kind of mitigate some of the expenses, but also mitigate those risks for business owners.
Yeah. So in a previous role of mine, I was in-house counsel for a large Wall Street services company that their clients were, the top banks in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to, in that business, we used to buy little businesses, kind of rolling them up into what we were doing. And so we were hiring some of the most expensive attorneys that there are in New York. And I sat down with my CEO one day and I said, look, there's a way that we can control these costs. And he said, if you can do that, then you will be a hero. So what we did is I devised my own engagement letter with the law firms that had in it a budget that they had to sign off on and agree to. And so basically we knew that that was the cost. And the only way they could go out of the budget was they had to justify that, and we had to agree to it. Otherwise, our bill was going to be what that budget was. And so it kind of kept the attorneys in check, right?
Yeah.
And several times I had to have that hard conversation with the law firm and say, hey, you went past the budget, and the agreement says we're not paying more than that.
Yeah, it's almost like a scope creep, they call it, in like the design world. But then also for the service-based world, I could imagine, like you're saying, it runs rampant. And if the company that is hiring the law firm or any service provider for that matter just keeps paying it and doesn't actually have anything established in a contractual agreement. So you're suggesting, though, that business owners that are going through an M&A transaction make sure to place into their contractual agreement a cost clause, in essence?
Exactly.
Okay.
Basically a budget that they agree to. So you make them get down and think about it and put together a budget, and then you make them sign off on that. And if they go outside of the budget, they're not going to get paid unless you guys agreed
Would
to
you,
a
based on
change.
your experience and many contracts that you've reviewed, do many contracts lack that specific clause?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
That's not you're talking about the contract
Yes,
with the
sir.
law firm. Yeah.
Yes.
Usually it's just here's our hourly rates and you pay our hourly rates. That's usually what a engagement letter with a law firm is.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's wise, sound advice from a sage here that has been through many transactions. So, what are other ways? Let's talk about how you were on the law side.
Mhm.
Going through these transactions. What were some of the negotiations? Do you remember, or maybe we can go back in time a little bit
Uh,
here on, maybe what was difficult about some of the negotiations that you went through and having to go back and forth on the law side? Because
yeah.
a lot of times it's one contract is drafted, then you send it to the other side, and then it's drafted again and again
Right.
and again. So
Right.
how do you go through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're preparing for an M&A transaction, if you're on the sell side, you certainly would want to, before you ever get the lawyers involved, really, you would want to make sure that you're organized for that. Do you have all of your contracts signed and organized so that when the buyer comes in and looks at all your stuff, are they going to be able to find it all?
Mm-hmm.
Has your accounting been audited, or has it been, what kind of shape is your accounting in, and make sure that's all clean and no questions and can go through scrutiny. Um, Making sure that all of your documents are in order, making sure that your corporate documents are all clean and complete. Once you have all of that all organized, I think it's better. It'll save you legal dollars from your law firm doing that for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're going to be charging you $6 to $1,000 an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really not a good use of your money to have them organize something that you could have done
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
So planning, it's a little bit of time upfront is going to
Yeah,
save you a lot of bit of money on the
yeah,
back end. And that's
absolutely.
what we continuously hear within the M&A
Yeah,
space. It's everything is about preparation and thinking multiple years in advance.
yeah,
That's what I'm realizing, and based on a lot of conversations with people on this podcast is, set up. So if you're going to exit, you're going to exit probably 4 to 5 years
right.
from the day that you think that you say you want to exit,
Right, right.
right?
That's right.
Unless, of course, you're on top of all of your books and your
Yeah,
scheduling and documentation.
absolutely. In fact, I
Hmm.
think that when you've gone through one, I think the next time you are much better at just setting yourself up in a way that keeps it organized.
Hmm.
So if you can think about that, if this is your first deal, or you're about to exit your first deal, um, think about how can you set it up in a way that'll keep it nice and organized and neat and clean, because that's just going to make you more sellable.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
the more organized you are.
Increased evaluation. That's what we continually see,
Yeah,
um, with people that are proactive in their planning, and I believe that that
yeah,
is a best case scenario. So you've been through a lot of transactions,
yeah,
and you've worked on the real estate side as well. And it's interesting because multiple arbitrage within a fund that is buying other businesses is very similar,
yeah.
to the real estate game, because you can still buy, different entities that own real estate,
Right.
like what we were talking about earlier in this conversation. And I'd be curious, do you have some insight as to that specific strategy that you could share with us?
You bet. Yeah. It's kind of a, I don't know. I've been doing this for 20 years, and mostly in real estate, mostly in commercial real estate. And most people that buy and sell real estate, they're thinking in terms of, I have an asset that I'm going to buy and sell. And so they're just buying and selling property, which,
Let's put that into a use case, like they buy a $3 million piece of property,
yeah,
commercial real
yeah,
estate, and then they sell it for five.
yeah.
That's basically what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. So the typical real estate transaction is they're either building value because they're going to rehab it and lease it up at a higher amount, or they're or they're building value by, changing the use of that property,
Mm-hmm.
or they're building value by um, holding it for a long term, and so their investors are making money long term. Different strategies, but what I've seen lately is that the M&A structure is being applied to commercial real estate and the portfolios of real estate
Mm-hmm.
typically. So a company will own an entity that is a holding company for real estate, and let's say it's a bunch of triple net lease property all over the country. And they could sell each of those properties individually. They could sell them as a portfolio that in the typical sense. But I have a couple clients now that are doing it just like they would in M&A. They're buying the entity that owns the real estate. And so it's the same process,
Mm-hmm.
same M&A process, same set of, reps and warranties, disclosures, all of that stuff to buy an entity. And it's interesting because that's just not how a typical real estate transaction goes.
Has been done.
Has been done, or
Yeah.
typically is done, but definitely at that level is being done. And I think it's kind of less known, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely a way to do it.
How would you do that? So let's speak to the audience out there, because again, we've got investors that watch this, business owners that are wanting to invest in other things and build their portfolio, and then we also do have real estate professionals. So if one was wanting to start that route, what would they start to implement? So they've got the holdings company, or they have a fund. Is that what people are doing? They're developing a fund. They're raising money for the fund,
Right.
and then they're buying the real estate entity.
Exactly.
Then they're dispersing their profits to the individuals that are a part of that fund.
Yeah. Yeah. So you could do it as like if you were raising money in a fund or a syndication, you could definitely do it that way, where you're raising money and the purpose is to buy real estate entities that own real estate. So that is one way to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little harder to get financing that way. But if you have a financing contact that is used to financing M&A type of purchases, then that is one way
It's
to
a
do
little
it.
bit more attractive to those people.
Yeah, but if you're
Yeah.
raising all the money, then yeah, you could definitely do it that way.
Interesting. From a legal standpoint, what is a not to do in that scenario? As far as one, through the contracts of doing a multiple arbitrage or raising funds, like what are some things that you've seen as a lawyer that is a absolute no, like no. Like what do you not do?
Well, you mean if you're playing in the fund world?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole list of things that you cannot do. And maybe that's a longer conversation.
Let's do it.
But
Well, at least go through the bullet points of things that maybe people can research.
right.
And then, obviously there's SEC regulations, there's 506, there's all these different terms,
Right.
but maybe you could elaborate on some of them.
Right. So there is, in the general sense, I'll just talk about it generally. There is the default with the SEC is that if you're raising money, it's regulated.
Mhm.
And think about the stock market, right? If you're buying and selling stocks on the stock market or ownership in private or public companies, that's all regulated activity, right?
Mhm.
So the SEC did realize that there is a space where there is private equity. And private equity is a little bit different, but in order for you to do private equity, which is what we're talking about, funds, fundraising, you have to follow a certain set of rules. So you can't go out to the general public. That's a big no-no. There are exceptions to everything I'm about to say. So I'm just talking generally.
No, you're talking like a lawyer. That's what you're talking like.
There are exceptions, and we can talk about those, specific case scenarios. But generally, the rule is you can't market to the general public. So you're only talking to people who are have a certain level of income or are professionals in the space that you can actually market to raise money from. So institutional, they have to have a lot of money, have a good net worth, used to buying, investing.
Yeah, so accredited investors.
Accredited investors is the term, yeah.
Yeah.
And so with accredited investors, you also have to have a relationship with them. You can't just go out to them. And generally, there are exceptions to that, but for the most part, if you're going to go raise money, you typically have a database of people that you know and have talked to in the past, and those are the people you go and raise money from.
The private market, in essence, like what you're saying. We're doing a private equity here, and more of a fund, become more of a fund focused model. As a business owner yourself, when you back in the day, did you have aspirations to do acquisitions, or was that something that you've learned along the way? Because again, it seems that there's a lot of education and various groups like what we're creating, obviously with the Acquisition IQ Network, to provide the resources and tools of those that are wanting to learn multiple arbitrage or growth through acquisition. What sparked your thought about, even being a part of a community like that? But also, did you have a time where you also had aspirations to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think my goal at the time was to start a business and then duplicate it. I think I was probably thinking more franchise type of model at that time. But I ran into a lot of legal problems. And that's what got me interested in going into law.
Yes.
And since then, I've learned just lots of different ways that I probably could have done that and been more successful at it. So and this is probably one of the biggest frustrations of most entrepreneurs is that, you fail and then you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do it again. It was so much work. But I would say to that person, everything is an experience.
Yeah.
And all of those experience will add up to something great later. And so don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid of it. It's just an experience.
Well, and that's what I realized too. Obviously, with this podcast, we have pretty pinpointed questions about specific use cases within the M&A field, but also at the end of the day, we're still entrepreneurs, or at least individuals that are surrounded by them all the time, and we're seeing certain things that they're doing that equate to the results that they're getting, and sometimes it's not all about just the numbers. It's about the mindset, like you're saying, and how you're able to persevere through adversities.
Yeah, and I even as an attorney, I've never I hate being people's employees, so it gives me heartburn. Like an entrepreneur, at their heart, they just want to do their own thing, right?
Yeah.
And build something and make it great and find that great exit.
Yeah.
So I think as an entrepreneur, you learn how to make money, right?
Yes.
So just take that knowledge and if I failed this one, let's go make some more money.
Yeah.
It's I just find that in the entrepreneurial spirit, people are just like, let's find a new way.
Yeah. Let's talk about some advice that you would give business owners out there, founders and investors, from a legal standpoint and the various transactions that you've been a part of. What are maybe the top 5 things, or 4, depending on how, which your brain is going to access right now, but around legal and some of the main things that you're seeing that can either take down a deal based on the inefficiencies within the agreements and contracts that are stated, because you have to be a mediator at times too. As a lawyer. Absolutely. You're on one side and then you're on the other, and then you're having to help to mitigate communication, or not mitigate, but enhance the communication to get to the end result. So what are some of those things that you would suggest for us to look at?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I would say is make sure your attorney understands that businesses take risks to make money. Right?
That's good.
There's no money made in the safe spot, typically small money. So businesses take risks.
You're so right about that. The small money.
And it's
Yeah.
the small money, yeah. So make sure your attorney is the kind of an attorney, vet them out a little bit. Make sure they understand how business works. You want a deal maker, not a deal killer. And a lot of attorneys are known as deal killers because they're so focused on the risks and keeping their clients away from risk, which is fine. Of course, that's the attorney's job to identify the risks, but he should be identifying the risks and letting you make the decision, or identifying the risk and say, I can mitigate these ones we can't mitigate. Are you willing to take those risks? That's what your attorney should be asking you.
Yeah, more of a consultant.
More of a consultant.
Yeah.
Like, here's the list of risks. Here's the ones I can mitigate. Here's the ones that we can't mitigate. So either we have to negotiate them out, or you have to be able to want to take on those risks. And those are all good conversations to have, because every business owner knows that if I don't take risk, I'm not going to make money, right?
True.
So that you want a deal maker, not a deal killer.
Okay, that's one. Anything else?
So the other one would be, what we talked about is controlling costs, and attorneys hate to be controlled that way. I am a law firm, and I would be, but the reason why I'm with the law firm I'm at is because we're all entrepreneurs. All of us are. So we understand it. We get it. And we're going to do whatever we can to make the client get their deal and be okay with the legal fees. So that's, just finding, they're out there.
Yeah.
Just find them. And, and if they're not that kind of an attorney, just kind of hold them to a budget, and you'll be a lot better off. You're going to be.
I thought that was really good, just to have a budget clause in your agreements with your service provider, that's a legal provider. And, it seems so elementary, but yet, like you're saying, you haven't seen it in a lot of contracts, and you just got to put that in there.
You just got to put it in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you know what you don't, you know what you don't, or you don't know what you don't know, right? And it's like something so simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And most law firms don't like it, but
of course
they've done enough transactions that they can kind of give you a good idea.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be better for you to know what that cost is up front.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing is to, get a good deal and finally exit and see that amount on the settlement statement, and then realize that a big chunk
half
of
goes
that's
to
going
the
to your
fee.
attorney.
Yeah.
So that's not a fun, elation and depression at the same time.
Anything else, through your experience?
Well, I would say just, make sure that if you're thinking that at some point you're going to sell a company, then you're going to be doing yourself a favor by making sure your deals are negotiated and memorialized in a contract. And because that's evidence that there's going to be income for the business, right? And then, so documenting, and then also just doing good accounting. It might be an expense when you're first starting out that you think, I can do that myself and we'll figure it out later with an accountant. I think it's money well spent, a good accountant, because they're going to keep the books in a way that, a buyer will look at later, and they'll see, oh, wow, he started here and he got to here and he's still on a trajectory.
Yeah.
That should all be proven by documentation.
Well, guys, if you're out there and you're a small business owner and, you're on track to potentially have a good exit within your company, don't let your documentation or lack of decrease the overall valuation of your exit. That's just one thing right there, based on here, Mr. Pete.
Yeah.
Telling us what he's gone through. And we've had several people on this podcast that are saying the same thing. It's all documentation, organization, and preparing from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that proactive approach to everything that you do is going to, in essence, and in the very end, if you structure it correctly and you're very strategic about how you're going to exit and who you're going to exit to, which is another thing that we were hearing from like, one of our guest speakers, Paul Bergen,
Right.
exit to a strategic, and plan your exit. Know exactly, almost to the number, like how much you want to exit for, who you want to exit to,
Right.
and then you just start working your way backwards from there.
Right.
So, well, listen, we're also excited to have you as a founding member of the
Yeah.
Acquisition IQ Network, and we're so appreciative of that investment, but also just your time here on the podcast to continue to
Absolutely.
share education, to the audience of the Acquisition IQ Network, as well as the podcast. So, thank you, Pete.
Absolutely.
We're privileged to have you. How does somebody get a hold of you if they wanted to do some business with you or go through a consultation?
Absolutely. Yeah. Probably my email is the best thing to give out here. It's
Yeah.
Pete, P-E-T-E, at mwfirm.com.
Okay, MW Firm. So Pete at MW Firm. We'll put that in on the video as well and also in the comments below. So thank you so much for joining us on the Acquisition IQ
Absolutely.
podcast today. And guys, if you like today's episode, make sure to subscribe, like, and also share with all your friends. Also, if you want to become a part of the Acquisition IQ Network, a private network for business owners, founders, investors, and service providers within the M&A space, make sure to take a look at acquisitioniq.co. We do have member positions available. We'll see you guys soon.